had to take the first action. Remember, India does not believe in first use of military power, but the doctrine of war seemed to be fast changing when it comes to India's foreign policy. We've now decided, and it's a position that India has taken and clearly stated so, that any act of war and any sub-conventional use of proxy war or non-military power will be retaliated with military action. Now, that's the position as far as foreign policy is concerned. But when it comes to appropriate evidence gathering, that India is now going to submit to the UN SC 1267 Sanctions Committee. Now, let me take our viewers back to the previous such terror attacks that have happened in India. Now, starting from 2008 onward, the Mumbai terror attack, to the 2001 parliamentary terror attack, the 2016 Uri attack, in all of these cases, India maintained a position that we are happy to have Islamabad come into India and participate in the investigative process. Now, Islamabad did come in and they did participate, but the dossiers that India sent out to Pakistan never referenced to or acted upon. Now, this time around, India did not carry out investigation, at least not in publicly, or not that we have evidence of, but it does look like India has gathered enough and more evidence, which is what we've heard the Defense Secretary say so, and various briefings that we have seen, that India has evidence, and this evidence will now be presented after it has already carried out a precise military action. So a change in foreign policy when it comes to investigating terror attacks. No link will be established first, and action will be taken first, and the evidence will be submitted later, and that evidence will be submitted to the UN SC on perhaps next week. We don't have a detail on when the meeting will be, but the Sanctions Committee, the 1267 Sanctions Committee, will hear from India as far as the evidence into Pahalgam.
Important for us to maintain our credibility. Pakistan's got nothing to lose, and we've got a fair share of credibility to fight for over here as well. But needless to say, the global ostracization of Pakistan is going to continue at that UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee meeting, all set to take place next week. Shweta Kothari bringing us those latest details as well. We're going to slip into a quick commercial breather here. On the other side, that explosive agenda-setting military press brief that is going to continue on as well. Well, I'm being told that we're going to continue with this broadcast here, because any minute now, that special press briefing by the DGMO and the equivalent ranking officers from the Indian Navy and, of course, the Indian Air Force, flanked on both sides, flanking the DGMO on both these sides. That's going to continue to go on. It's going to happen very, very soon, and India is going to continue to push the world to ostracize Pakistan, to highlight and showcase and throw more light on the terror hubs that Pakistan harbors. Many terror hubs that are now based out of Pakistan. It's one of their biggest exports. Operation Sindoor, nothing but another one of those examples in front of the rest of the world, whereas Osama bin Laden was captured and neutralized as well. Lashkar-e-Toiba, Al-Qaeda's linkages and its core foundation also in Pakistan and POK as well. That particular press conference underway at this point in time, the big military agenda setting press brief. Let's quickly cut across, listen in. The DGMO, flanked by equivalent ranking officers from the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force on both sides.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind. Welcome to this special press conference on Operation Sindoor. We will begin with opening statements by the three senior officers to my right here, who have been directly overseeing operations during Operation Sindoor. We have Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, Director General Military Operations, who will cover the aspects related to land domain. Air Marshal A.K. Bharti, to his right, Director General Air Operations, will provide insights on the air domain. And to my right is Vice Admiral A.N. Pramod, Director General Naval Operations, who will cover aspects on maritime domain. Following their briefings, we will move on to the question answer session. I now request the DGMO to commence the opening brief.
Thank you, Sandeep. A very good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. You are all by now familiar with the brutality and the dastardly manner in which 26 innocent lives were prematurely terminated at Pahalgam on the 22nd of April. When you combine those horrific scenes and the pain of the families that the nation witnessed with numerous other recent terrorist strikes on our armed forces and defenseless civilians, we knew that the time had arrived to make yet another compelling statement of our resolve as a nation. Operation Sindoor was conceptualized with a clear military aim to punish the perpetrators and planners of terror and to destroy their terror infrastructure. What I do not state here, of course, is the often stated determination of India and its intolerance to terror. It set into motion a very diligent and microscopic scarring of the terror landscape across the borders and the identification of terror camps and training sites. The locations that emerged were numerous, but as we deliberated more, we realized that some of these terror hubs were now bereft of any presence and had preemptively been vacated, fearing retribution from us. There was also a term of reference and our own binding, self-imposed restriction to target only terrorists and thus prevent collateral damage. There were 9 camps that you are now all familiar with, which were confirmed by our various intelligence agencies to be inhabited. Some of these were in POJK, while there were others that were located in the Punjab province in Pakistan. Nefarious places such as Muridke, the hub center of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, has over the years bred infamous characters such as Ajmal Kasab and the likes of David Headley. What followed was a careful scrutiny of each of these sinister locations, their layout, configuration, even the type of construction in each structure, and the terrain obtained around these. This was with an obvious intent to deduce and identify the exact vector that was required for their neutralization, as also the eyes in the sky that we would send up to ensure that we brought back evidence that we had indeed targeted what we set out to. The precise images of these engagements on that fateful and historical night have already been showcased during the first press statement on the 7th of May that was helmed by our Foreign Secretary. I have no doubt in my mind that we achieved total surprise, and those strikes across those 9 terror hubs left more than 100 terrorists killed, including high-value targets such as Yusuf Azhar, Abdul Malik Rauf, and Mudassir Ahmed. that were involved in the hijack of IC-814 and the Pulwama blast. The line of control was also violated soon after by Pakistan, and the erratic and rattled response of our enemy was apparent from the number of civilians, inhabited villages, and religious sites such as Gurudwaras that were unfortunately hit by them, leading to a sad loss of lives. The Indian Air Force played a major part in these strikes by engaging some of these camps, and the Indian Navy provided wherewithal in terms of precision munitions. The Indian Air Force obviously had their assets up in the sky, and I will here request Air Marshal Bharti, the Director General of Air Operations, to detail for you the methodology that the men in blue adopted to successfully manifest this mission.
Thank you, Rajiv. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It indeed is a difficult time that we have to come here like this and brief you. We could have done without this, but we had no choice. As the DGMO has detailed, the event was precipitated by the dastardly act at Pahalgaon. The sequence of events have already been detailed. We carefully selected the targets, and out of the 9 selected targets, the target systems that were given to the Indian Air Force were the notorious training camps at Bhavalpur and Muridke, these being further from the international boundary. Through critical target system analysis, we analyzed what was to be done to annihilate these targets and plan to engage these targets with precision air-to-surface guided munitions so as to avoid collateral damage. The modalities of planning process I will not go through at this instant. However, what I would like to show you is the results that we achieved through our targeted air strikes. Could I have the second slide, please? Yeah, change, please. Okay. This is what the terror infra at Muridke looks like. If you see, north is as indicated, and to the right is east, where the international boundary lies. Could we have the next slide, please? Orientating. Just go back to one slide. Okay. Please have a look at this red building, the series of buildings out here, and this empty ground. Next. If you relate, the empty ground is here, and you see this is the first weapon that is impacting. This is the impact point number 1 on Muridke training camp with our precision guided weapons on early morning 7th. Next, please. Keep your eyes glued for the second weapon coming in and the second impact on the selected target point. Next slide, please. Third weapon, third impact. Continue. And fourth weapon, fourth impact. So through these targeted and precision targeting, we addressed the target at Muridke, which was the terrain infrastructure. Can you hear me? All right. Okay, I'll come closer to the mic. Now we go to the next target, which is the Bhavalpur training camp. Next slide, please. Okay, just wait. So the effect, if you see, the impact point, if I can point out, this is the impact point. The ammunition has gone through the roof and it has created a blast inside, the photographs of which you would have, all of you would have seen. And the red building, after that there was this double-story building. It has been completely decimated by precision targeting. Next, please. The target system which was in the north, a series of buildings. I will show you how it looked. Next. Completely destroyed by our precision targeting. Next. Now coming to Bhavalpur, this is the target complex that we are dealing with, a fairly large target complex. So we had to carefully choose the points that we needed to address, which were high value and which would meet our stated objectives of eliminating the terrorists. I would like to draw your attention to this red canopy, and in relation to that, I would cover the targets. One target system is a series of buildings here, other one here, and other one out here. Next slide, please. This is how it looked before, and this is how the building looked after the impact of the weapon. And orientation in relation to this red canopy, you can see here. Next, please. Before, next, and after. The roofs have completely collapsed. Next. This is the target system. Next. Precision targeting, and we have achieved our objectives here. Next. All right. So that was what we did on the 7th. Our objective was to address these two terrorist camps, and that we did with precision. And thereafter, we maintained a robust air defense posture, because remember, our objective was to target the terrorists and terrorist infrastructure, not any other infrastructure, not the Pakistani military, not the Pakistani any other infrastructure. So that is what we have maintained on the 7th of May. However, what we saw in the evening of 7th of May, we were saturated with a raid of Pakistani unmanned aerial vehicles and small drones. And these came in waves in our civilian areas, over our military installations, and all of them were successfully intercepted. Few of them did manage to land. However, there was not much damage that they did. And we have our robust counter-US hard kill and soft kill systems which did the job. However, the difference here was that we had targeted the terrorists. The adversary now has targeted our civilians and the military infrastructure. So it had to be responded to. So in a quick and calibrated response, that very night, we struck their radar installations at Lahore and close to Gujranwala, the LYT installation, to indicate to him that we are ready, yet we do not want to escalate. Our fight was with the terrorists and not with the Pakistani military establishment. Thank you.
Thank you, Air Marshal Bharti. So, ladies and gentlemen, he's outlined operations not only on the night of 6th and 7th of May, when Operation Sindoor commenced, but also on the subsequent night. Being well aware and familiar with the congenital and impulsive nature of our adversary, and even though we did attempt to reach out and communicate our compulsions to strike at the heart of terror, to my counterpart in the immediate wake of Operation Sindoor, the request was brusquely turned down, with an intimation that a severe response was inevitable and in the offing. We were, of course, prepared. Operations on the 7th and the 8th, Air Marshal Bharti spoken about. On the night of 8th and 9th of May, they flew drones and aircrafts into our airspace all across the borders and made largely unsuccessful attempts to target numerous military infrastructure. Violations on the line of control by Pakistan also commenced yet again and precipitated into fierce RT engagements. The air operations on the night of 8th and 9th of May, I'll yet again request the DG Air Operations to cover.
So I just covered what happened on the night of 7th and 8th. What we found that on the night of 8th and 9th, starting as early as 22:30 hours, our cities had a mass raid of drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, UCAVs, starting right from Srinagar, going down right up to Nalia. It was a mass raid in waves and it was relentless. However, we were prepared and our air defense preparedness ensured that there is no damage on ground or to any of the intended targets that the enemy might have planned for. The difference between 7th night and 8th night was that on 7th night he sent in his Jihad class of UAVs, however, these UAVs can go some distance, they are armed. However, on the 8th, less numbers of armed UCAVs were there or UAVs were there, and more numbers of quadcopters, maybe for surveillance or just for harassment of civilians. This continued till midnight. Our air defense preparedness ensured that there was no damage on the ground, either to the military installations or to the civilians. However, the enemy had yet again shown that he wanted to up the ante and he wanted a fight, and we were up to the task. In a measured and calibrated response, we once again targeted his military installations, which included his SAM sites at Malirkant. This also included his surveillance radar sites at Lahore and close to Gujranwala. These were suitably addressed, and thereafter his drone attacks continued even till morning, which we countered, and during the daytime there was some respite. Here I would like to bring out another aspect. What we found was that while the drone attacks were being launched from somewhere close to Lahore, enemy had allowed his civilian aircraft to also continue to fly out of Lahore. Not only his own aircraft, but international passenger aircraft, which is quite insensitive, and we had to exercise extreme caution, even at the cost of some tactical disadvantage, to ensure that there is no damage to any of the civilian aircraft. And this was also brought out in our press briefing during the day. So I will now hand over to my colleague to cover the events of 9th onwards.
On land, we also undertook certain measures such as deployment of air defense and electronic warfare assets to establish an integrated grid with the Indian Air Force and I have seen and heard some of you wax eloquent about the benefits of such an architecture when it comes to negating and combating air intrusions. We also carried out deployment to include movement of our forces in the land, sea and air domains. The night of the 9th and the 10th of May saw similar intrusions by drones and aircrafts, and this time there was a concerted effort to target airfields and some very, very important logistic installations, albeit yet again unsuccessful and denied gallantly and efficiently, I must say, by the integrated Indian Air Force and Indian Army Air Defence. We further strengthened our deployment and also initiated some pressure points to send a very clear and unambiguous message to the other side to desist from any misadventures on land. Some of the airfields and dumps saw repeated attacks in waves from the air. All were thwarted. The Pakistan Army has reported to have lost approximately 35 to 40 personnel in artillery and small arms firing on the line of control between the 7th and the 10th of May. What the other side had probably also not reckoned with was the speedy and precise turnaround and hit back by the Indian Air Force. And I will yet again ask Air Marshal Bharti to speak about these significant and game-changing strikes. I will thereafter request Vice Admiral Pramod, my colleague and Director General of Naval Operations, to tell us about some very telling naval maneuvers in the Arabian Sea that exerted pressure on the night of 9th and 10th of May. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Commencing about 2000 hours, that is 8 p.m. local time, on 8th of May, several Pakistani unmanned aerial systems, drones, combat vehicles attacked multiple IF bases. These included Jammu, Udhampur, Pathankot, Amritsar, Bhatinda, Nal, Dalhousie, Thois, Jaisalmer, Uttarlai, Falodi, Nalia. These were almost simultaneous and they came in waves. All our AD guns and other systems were waiting for them. All these waves were neutralized by our trained crew using the air defense systems that they have, and also some of them were utilized using our legacy systems like Pechoras and IF Summer, which we have recently acquired, and some were neutralized by the Garud snipers. There was no damage on ground from these incursions and these mass raids, if I could call them, from the Pakistani side. However, following these relentless attacks on our air bases, on our forward positions and on our civilian targets, this was time to convey some message to our adversaries. And therefore, a decision was taken to strike where it would hurt. And towards that, in a swift, coordinated, calibrated attack, we struck his air bases, command centers, military infrastructure, air defense systems across the entire Western Front. The bases we struck include Chaklala, Rafiki, and mind you, Chaklala is Islamabad, Rahim Yar Khan, Sakar, sending a clear message that aggression will not be tolerated. This was followed by strikes at Sargoda, Bholari, Jacobabad. We also struck the C2 centers at Murid, the UAE complex at Murid, Rafiki, radar at Chunia, which I will show you, Rahimyar Khan Airfield and the unmanned combat aerial vehicle hangar at Sakar. I would like to reiterate here that we have the capability to target every system at these bases and more. However, it was only a measured response to instill good wisdom to our adversary to refrain from further escalation. IF response was directed only at military installations, avoiding civilian and collateral damage. I would now like to show you some of the effects that have been achieved as a result of our air operation. Here is the Pasrur air defense system, if you could see. Zoomed up view. This is the radar mounted on a high tower. And after the strike, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. And after the strike, this is what has happened. This radar has been taken out, completely burnt. Next slide, please. The Chunia air defense radar, which was taken out on 7th and 8th. This is the radar site. A blown up photograph, once again, on a tower. Not very clear, but what you see very clearly is the after effect after we have struck. The radar head has been completely decapitated. Next slide, please. Arifwala air defense radar. In this complex, you see how it looked before, blown up image, and after really blown up. Next. Now coming to Sargodha airfield. Remember, this is one of their important airfields wherein they have a lot of assets, F-16s, other assets which they keep getting, training institutes. And we have stuck this airfield. It is not, if you zoom in here, then one impact point here on the runway and second impact point of our weapon, precision weapon on the runway. And if you see this blown up repairing going on, same here. Next. Rahimyar Khan. This is the area we have struck. A deep strike out here and one complex here. So this is how it looked before, and same, you see a big crater, another crater here, and this complex, after strike, neutralized. Next. Chaklala airfield, Noor Khan, once again a major air base, a lot of their logistic assets out here. This was the chosen complex that we intended to strike and convey a message. Next slide, please. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after our strike. Next. Sakar. We chose the radar site at Sakar. This is the radar site, and after it was struck, this is the aftermath, completely burnt out. Next, please. Aircraft shelter. This is how it looked before the strike, and this is how it looked after the strike. The roof of the buildings completely caved in and burnt. Next. Ballari airfield, aircraft hangar. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after the precision strike. Next. Jacobabad, aircraft hangar, and this is how it looked after. Next. So what I'm trying to convey here, ladies and gentlemen, is to start with, our fight was neither with the Pakistani military nor with anybody else who's there on the other side. Our fight was with the terrorists. We neutralized the terrorists That we selected to be neutralized, and thereafter we only maintained the air defense posture. However, we were relentlessly pounded by waves after waves, night after night, by his UCAVs, by his drones, and by his other unmanned aerial systems. And that left us with no choice but to retaliate, and yet our retaliation was calibrated, it was graduated, and it was proportionate. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the aftermath of the cowardly attacks on innocent tourists at Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistani-sponsored terrorists on 22nd April, the Indian Navy's Carrier Battle Group, surface forces, submarines, and aviation assets were immediately deployed at sea with full combat readiness in concert with the joint operation plan of the Indian Defence Forces. You may be aware that we tested and refined tactics and procedures at sea during multiple weapon firings in the Arabian Sea within 96 hours of the terrorist attack. The aim was to revalidate our crew, armament, equipment, and platform readiness to deliver various ordnance on selected targets precisely. Thereafter, our forces remained forward deployed in the Northern Arabian Sea in a dissuasive and deterrent posture with full readiness and capacity to strike select targets at sea and on land, including Karachi at time of our choosing. The forward deployment of the Indian Navy compelled Pakistani naval and air units to be in a defensive posture, mostly inside harbors or very close to the coast, which we monitored continuously. The Indian Navy maintained seamless maritime domain awareness throughout the duration and was entirely aware of the location and movement of Pakistani units. In effect, we had and continue to have good battle space transparency using our maritime domain awareness grid. As you are aware, our response has been measured, proportionate, non-escalatory, and responsible from day one. Accordingly, the calibrated approach considered all options, including the ability of the Indian Navy for offensive action from and at sea. As part of this escalation control mechanism, the application of force by the Navy was planned in a synchronized manner in coordination with the Army and Air Force, the highlight being teams from the three services working closely in an integrated manner. Along with the kinetic actions by the Indian Army and Indian Air Force, the overwhelming operational edge of Indian Navy at sea contributed towards Pakistan's urgent request for a ceasefire yesterday. As we speak, Indian Navy remains deployed at sea in a credible deterrent posture to respond decisively to any inimical action by Pakistan or Pakistan-based terrorists. Thank you. Samno Varna, Jai Hind. Now I'll hand over to Director General Military Operations for further proceedings.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the 10th of May, in the morning, even as we were getting into a huddle to wargame the events of the previous night, a routine exercise, I received a message on hotline from my counterpart in Pakistan seeking my willingness to communicate. Since our initial aim was to strike at terror camps, and all our actions in the subsequent days were in response to the intrusions and violations by the Pakistan Air Force and its army, it was decided that I would indeed speak with my counterpart. You are already aware, I've seen it being covered on national television, that my communication with the Pak DGMO was conducted at 15:35 hours yesterday, and resulted in cessation of cross-border firing and air intrusions by either side with effect from 1700 hours 10th of May, after he proposed that we cease hostilities. We also decided to further speak on the 12th of May, that's tomorrow, at 1200 hours, to discuss the modalities that would enable the longevity of this understanding. However, disappointingly, and must I add, expectedly, it took only a couple of hours for the Pakistan Army to violate these arrangements by cross-border and across the line of control firing, followed by drone intrusions across the expanse of the Western Front through last night and in the early hours of the morning today. These violations were responded to robustly and dealt with as they must be. We have earlier today sent another hotline message to my counterpart highlighting these violations of the understanding between the DGMOs on the 10th of May and our firm and clear intent to respond to these fiercely and punitively, if repeated tonight, subsequently, or later. In this regard, I must inform all of you that the Chief of Army Staff has earlier today conducted a security review and has granted full authority to our Army commanders for counter-actions in the kinetic domain in case of any violation by Pakistan. In the end, I pay my solemn homage to my 5 fallen colleagues and brothers from the armed forces and civilians who have tragically lost their lives in Operation Sindoor. Our hearts go out to the bereaved families, and we express our solidarity to them in this lifetime and beyond, at this grave juncture in their lives. Their sacrifices shall always be remembered and spoken of in glowing terms by a grateful nation. We have thus far, ladies and gentlemen, exercised, and my colleague Pramod highlighted this, immense restraint, and our actions have been focused, measured, and non-escalatory. However, any threat to the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and safety of our citizens will be met with decisive force. Jai Hind.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now open for questions. All right, now since I would not know all of you, I would expect you to please raise the placard or your hand, and once I indicate, I expect you to please give out your name and the media group that you belong to. Keep your questions short so that we can take as many questions as possible. Also, ladies and gentlemen, kindly bear in mind that confidential aspects may not be answered by the 3 DGMOs. Right. I've got a lot of hands there. Let me start from the left. Left foot always in front when we start marching. So here we have to the left, okay. Yeah, 238.
Hello. So this is Manas Pratimugyan from PTI, Press Trust of India. So the understanding that was reached yesterday on stopping the military operations and actions, was it for just 3 days? And what would be the cost escalation if there is violation of this understanding by the Pakistani side? And my subsequent question would be that we have a kind of ceasefire agreement with Pakistan that was finalized in 2003. So will there be some kind of similarities in frameworks between the two two kind of understandings, 2003 ceasefire agreement and the current understanding on stopping military operations. And again, what are the cost that will be incurring on Pakistan if Pakistan again resorts to this kind of terrorist activities, because we have made it very clear that the cost will be very high. So I would like to have your thoughts on it.
Okay, so I'll answer the latter part of the question first. I also want to add that while the initial ceasefire agreement, as you correctly pointed out, is of the 2003 vintage, but I must remind you that in 2021, in the month of February, and this was then when the crisis in eastern Ladakh was also on, the two DGMOs had spoken and arrived at a ceasefire understanding that lasted right up until this unfortunate attack at Pahalgam. Once our Foreign Secretary had announced the decisions of the CCS in the immediate wake of that attack, he had announced certain measures, and then of course Pakistan had in turn made its own announcements. Since then, there have been certain violations of this ceasefire understanding, and of course after the 7th of May, like I pointed out during my statement, that there have been numerous violations on the line of control especially, and of course along the international boundary by the Pakistan Army and the Pakistan Air Force. This understanding that we spoke about yesterday, no, it was not for 3 days. It was first to stop aggressive and hostile activities immediately, let that order and direction settle down for about 36 hours, and thereafter discuss modalities, like I said, to ensure its longevity. That is tomorrow on the 12th of May. But unfortunately, we had a violation starting at approximately 1900 hours last night, and we've sent a communique, like I said, to the Pakistan Military Operations Directorate, and we will await as to what happens tonight.
All right.
The cost escalation, I'll leave it to your best imagination. I've already said that the response will be fierce and punitive.
Now, the right foot forward. Yeah.
Sir, I am Ajit Dubey from ANI, sir. Sir, my question is that you talked about the loss of lives to the Pakistan Army, that was around 35 to 40 kills secured by the Indian Army. Sir, can you tell us what would be the total loss of life to the Pakistan Army in both Army and Air Force attacks, sir? And how good was the performance of the BrahMos, Scalp and the S-400 during the operations? And sir, since we have sir, just one line,
no multiple questions, please.
Sir.
All right.
And since sir, we have achieved such a spectacular, we have made good achievements in this entire operation, can we say that we have emerged victorious, or we have a big upper hand over the Pakistanis in this entire conflict? Thank you very much, sir.
So I'll answer the question about the loss of lives on the other side. Of course, there are various means to ascertain that number. There is information from various agencies that come in. There are, of course, on the line of control, other ways to find out as to what has been the effect of what you are doing there in ceasefire violations. So therefore, I mentioned 35 to 40 on the line of control, and please remember that once Operation Sindoor was launched, the responses of the Pakistan Army were also on Indian Army or the Indian Armed Forces infrastructure. Let me put it that way. So that's why I did not cover casualties of the Pakistan Army, at least in the initial phases of battle, because those were not our targets. Our targets were terror-oriented, and of course later, once they launched air intrusions and air operations on our infrastructure, we've used heavier weapons, and of course there would have been casualties, but those are still being assessed. The effects of the weapons that you mentioned, I will request Air Marshal Bharti to apprise all of you about those.
Good evening, Mr. Sujit. How are you? Ajit. Okay, we're meeting after some time. I never mentioned about any of the weapons that we used. Check. Okay. What I was saying, that I never mentioned of any of the weapons, the caliber that we used. All right. So we'll leave it at that. Those are matters of operational details which I would not like to go into. But suffice to say that whatever methods and whatever means we have chosen, it had the desired effects on the enemy targets. How many casualties? How many injuries? Well, to start with, our aim was not to inflict casualties, but in case there have been, it is for them to count. Our job is to hit the target, not to count the body bags.
And the last part of your question, I wonder if you read out the tweet on ADG-PI at midnight once we'd done what we had to in Operation Sindoor. And that's credit to my friend here on the left. Justice has been served, Ajit. That is all that I will say.
Ajit, no, I'll request you to, refrain putting words into his mouth. All right. I'll come back to the left. 147. Sorry, 47. No, 47. Did I see it here or? Yeah.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Sorry, 147. I saw it there. Sorry. Yeah. Since I've already said 147. Start, please.
Hi, sir. Good evening. This is Shivam Patel from Reuters News Agency. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My question, sir, is how many military targets did Indian Armed Forces strike in Pakistan in response to the attacks from Pakistan? How were these targets selected? And how many troop casualties have been there in total on both sides, if you can give details? Thank you.
I'm sorry, where are you? I haven't spotted his...
He's to the right.
Okay. Can you just repeat that for me, please?
Sure, sir. So my name is Shivam Patel. I'm from Reuters News Agency. My question is, how many military targets in total did the Indian Armed Forces strike in Pakistan in response to the attack from Pakistan? How were these targets selected? And how many troop casualties have been there on both sides, if you can?
So you're speaking of the targets that I mentioned in the wake of the attack at Pahalgam, right?
Military targets, after who response?
Yeah, I think it's amply clear to everybody here that the Pakistan army has not crossed the international boundary, neither in the plain sector nor on the line of control. So the intrusions have been in the air. There have been certain attempts on the line of control when ceasefire violations have been on to try and infiltrate and carry out and perpetrate activities that we are all very well familiar with. Whether these are by terrorists or by the Pakistan army or its special forces and commandos is difficult to say, but each of these have been effectively thwarted. So therefore, as far as engagements of military targets on the other side is concerned, I thought Air Marshal Bharti covered those very well and in detail, and he also mentioned as to how they went about targeting those. I think those images were very clear and very, very graphic in telling us as to what we needed to hit. And you'll remember right at the outset I said that we even went into what was the construction in each of these locations and therefore decided on the vector that had to be utilized. Please.
Okay, if I could add to what the DGMO has said, I have already detailed the targets. Now, whether it is X numbers or Y numbers is that is immaterial. And what damage have we inflicted? You have seen. What are the casualties on the other side? As I said, that is for them to count. As far as we are concerned, from the air defense side, if they had a choice, they would have definitely come in. They are fighters, there are more numbers of UCAVs. It is not that they did not intend to come in. It is only that our robust AD posture prevented them from coming in. So that must be known, and that must be realized by all the audience here.
Yeah, I'll come to the left now, 24.
Good evening, sir. This is Anvesh Rath from Z. Sir, I wanted to know on the first briefing, which was done by FS and two representatives from Air Force and Army, you showed a list where there was 21 places in that list. You have stuck 9. Are more operations going to be held? Is Operation Sindoor still on? And the second question, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
And also, I want to congratulate all three of you for a fantastic operation that you guys have done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that one question. Yeah. Sir, the question.
Unfortunately, Rath, is that your name? I'm sorry. You know, as far as operational details are concerned, I am not in a position to share those right now. But I think I'll take a cue from Pramod. You know, he said towards the end that the Indian Navy is still in a posture that is deterrent. And I have already made it very clear towards the end of what I said that it's only a couple of hours ago that the Chief of Army Staff has carried out a security review, and he's authorized our Army commanders to deal with violations of any kind from across the borders in a manner that they deem fit. So again, to reiterate, the response will be fierce and it will be punitive.
Yes. 163. I'll go back this side now. Yeah, 255. She said middle wale kya karenge, so 255. Oh, sorry.
Good evening, sir. I'm Shailesh from National Defense. Please allow me, first of all, to pay my gratitude for protecting us Indians. Thank you very much. Sir, since the enemy has been talking about taking down our aerial platforms, it would be deemed fit in case we can reveal that we have taken down their fighter jets. What could be the number? Though you said that they may be not good to reveal the platforms, but since this has come from various quarters in Pakistan, so I believe that we need to answer, in case if you can, sir, if you may allow.
The question is for me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and if I get it right, you want to know how many of their planes we have downed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. See, as I said, their planes were prevented from coming inside our border. All right. So we do not have the wreckage with us, but definitely we have downed a few planes. Numbers, we would not like to hazard a guess out here. Okay. I have the numbers. Okay, and we are getting into the technical details of it to establish it. So I would not like to put a figure at this time, but definitely there are losses from their side which we have inflicted.
Were they,
please don't ask.
Were they fourth generation plus, sir?
No,
see, you're putting words into my mouth. Why do you say fourth generation? Let us make it high tech.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, 163.
सर मैं मंजीत नेगी हूँ आज तक से। मेरा सवाल ये है कि इस पूरे ऑपरेशन में जो आतंकी ठिकानों को निशाना बनाया गया, क्या नंबर्स कुछ बता सकते हैं कितने आतंकी मारे गए? कुछ नाम सरकार मतलब कुछ नाम मीडिया में आए भी हैं जो बड़े उसके मास्टरमाइंड थे। और एक सवाल जो आज एयरफोर्स ने भी ट्वीट किया कि ऑपरेशन सिंदूर अभी जारी है और सरकार की तरफ से भी कहा गया। और पिछली बार जब विदेश मंत्रालय की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस पहली हुई थी उसमें वो लिस्ट दिखाई गई थी कि 21 टेरर कैंप आइडेंटिफाई किए गए हैं। तो क्या जो बाकी बचे हुए टेरर कैंप उन पर भी कार्रवाई होगी? और एक नंबर अगर आप बता पाएं कितने टेररिस्ट मारे गए?
Sir, before you answer, sir, before you. Manjeet ji, 3 questions. The third one has just been asked here before. So 21 this thing. So I'll request the first to be answered so that we have more number of people who can ask.
मंजीत, जब मैंने स्टेटमेंट दिया तो मैंने शुरू में ही कहा कि जैसे ही ऑपरेशन सिंदूर कॉन्सेप्चुअलाइज हुआ तो हमारा जो पीछे की कार्रवाई होती है स्पेड वर्क और टारगेट्स को आइडेंटिफाई और एनालाइज करने की कार्रवाई शुरू हो गई थी। मैंने जब स्टेटमेंट दिया तो मैंने बताया कि बहुत सारे थे, हमने 21 दिखाए होंगे और भी हैं, लेकिन वो लिस्ट फिल्टर करते करते 21 तक पहुंची। अब क्या आगे एंगेज किए जाएंगे? अगर जरूरत पड़ेगी तो जरूर एंगेज किए जाएंगे, लेकिन मैंने बताया कि इस समय जो इंट एजेंसीज ने हमें बताया कि फलाने कैंप में प्रेजेंस है, हमने उनको एंगेज किया। कुछ नाम मैंने लिए, कुछ नाम अभी पुख्ता किए जा रहे हैं। मैंने आपको बताया कि जो इंट एजेंसीज ने अभी तक असेसमेंट किया है उसमें उन्होंने कहा है कि तकरीबन 100 से ज़्यादा मारे गए हैं। और एक आज आपने तस्वीर भी देखी कि काफ़ी प्रोमिनेंट जो फ्यूनरल था, काफ़ी प्रोमिनेंट एक जो हस्ती हैं वो ऑर्गेनाइज कर रहे थे, और उस फ्यूनरल में और कौन कौन लोग अटेंड कर रहे थे वो तो आपने देखा ही। तो आप लोग सब समझदार हैं और मुझे ये कहने की ज़रूरत नहीं है कि इन लोगों को कहाँ से सपोर्ट मिल रहा है। अगर नहीं मिल रहा होता तो ऑपरेशन सिंदूर नहीं होता, तो उसी की वजह से है ये ऑपरेशन। तो मेरे ख्याल से मैंने आपके सारे सवालों का जवाब दे दिया।
मैम, सर नेक्स्ट इज फ्रॉम 17।
सर मेरा नाम अंजू निर्वाण है, TV9 भारतवर्ष से। सर मेरा सवाल ये है कि ऑपरेशन सिंदूर में हमारी जो इंडियन नेवी है उसके बारे में सर थोड़ा सा बताएं कि किस तरह की उसकी भूमिका रही, क्योंकि हमने इस दौरान सर देखा कि बहुत सारी स्पेकुलेशन भी रही और ये बोला गया कि कराची तक हमारी नेवी ने ऑपरेशन किया है। तो सर इस पे थोड़ी सी क्लैरिटी चाहिए। और सर हमने कौन कौन से फाइटर एयरक्राफ्ट डाउन किए हैं, अगर उसका भी थोड़ा सा क्लैरिटी मिल जाए तो अच्छा रहेगा।
तो मैं आपका पहले सवाल का जवाब दूंगा। आई विल मेक फ्यू सेंटेंसेस एंड लीव इट फॉर योर इमेजिनेशन। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, एज आई मेंशन्ड, वी हैव क्वांटिटेटिव एंड qualitative edge to deliver a massive blow to our adversary, and we completely dominate in the maritime front. Indian Navy's action is part of the escalation ladder mechanism which we have worked out amongst 3 services. This time, if Pakistan dare take any action, and Pakistan knows it, what we are going to do. That's all.
Okay. आपके सवाल का जवाब मैं पहले दे चुका हूं। आपके सवाल का जवाब मैं पहले दे चुका हूं, इसलिए मैं बस उस तक ही सीमित रखूंगा और इतना कहना चाहूंगा कि आने वाले दिनों में आपको खुद ही पता चल जाएगा, और ऐसी बातें छुपी नहीं रहती हैं, तो पता चल जाएगा। सो एट दिस टाइम वी जस्ट लेट इट बी।
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have 1 or 2 more questions, sir. So, please, they are going to be outside. You can speak to them there also. 104. I think. Yeah, ask sir.
Sir, Dinakar with the Hindu newspaper.
Are you surprised that you got this question?
No, sir. Just to look. Sir, can you give a number of assets we lost, because there's been a lot of speculation going on, international media writing a lot of things about our platforms, including Rafale. I mean, Pakistan claiming that Rafale has been downed, etc. Can you put that question to rest and clarify on that?
I guess that question is for me. All right, I'm happy that you've asked this question. You know, we are in a combat scenario, and losses are a part of combat. The question that you must ask us, okay, and indeed that we must ask ourselves, you inclusive, is have we achieved our objectives? Have we achieved our objective of decimating that terrorist camp? And the answer is a thumping yes. And the results are for the whole world to see. As for the details, what could have been, how many numbers, which platform did we lose? You know, at this time, I would not like to comment on that, because we are still in a combat situation. And if I comment on anything, it will only be advantage adversary. So we don't want to give him any advantage at this stage. All I can say is that we have achieved our objectives that we selected, and all our pilots are back home. Thank you.
Okay, hold, please don't, please be civil here. So we'll have 220 now.
हेलो सर, दिस इज अनीता चौधरी सर फ्रॉम स्वदेश न्यूज़पेपर। मेरा सवाल है, क्योंकि ये हमारे जो पहले जो एक्शन रहा वो आतंकवाद के खिलाफ रहा, तो आतंकवाद में अजहर मसूद की तरफ से एक बयान जारी किया गया था जिसमें उन्होंने कहा कि हम इसका बदला लेंगे और जाज रुलाएंगे। तो क्या अगला, अगर खुदा न खास्ता अगला टेरर अटैक किसी भी तरह का होता है, तो क्या उसे एक्ट ऑफ वॉर में हमारी तरफ से लिया जाएगा और उसका क्या माकूल जवाब दिया जा सकता है?
मेरा इसमें सिर्फ एक ही जवाब है आपके लिए कि हमने अपनी कार्रवाई करी। हमने उसके बाद मैंने अपने स्टेटमेंट में भी बताया कि ये कम्युनिकेट करने की कोशिश करी कि हमने इस तरीके से ये जो स्ट्राइक्स हैं वो क्यों की। लेकिन जो हमारा एडवर्सरी है उसने जैसे मुनासिब समझा वो कार्रवाई करी। तो आपने देखा कि ये जो एक्टिविटीज़ चल रही हैं 3-4 दिन से, ये कोई वॉर से कम नहीं है। नॉर्मल सर्कमस्टांसेस में एक दूसरे देश की एयरफोर्सेस हवा में नहीं उड़ती हैं और एक दूसरे के ऊपर स्ट्राइक्स नहीं करती हैं। हर रात इंट्रूजन्स नहीं होते हैं। लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल पर सीज फायर वायोलेशंस, आपके एक साथी ने सवाल पूछा था शुरू में, एक सीज फायर अंडरस्टैंडिंग था, वो भी जा चुका है। उस सीज फायर अंडरस्टैंडिंग के जाते जो फायरिंग हो रही है लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल में, उसमें घुसपैठ की कोशिश हो रही है। आमतौर पर ये घुसपैठ लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल में टेररिस्ट करते हैं, लेकिन हमें इंफॉर्मेशन है कि हो सकता है ये पाकिस्तान आर्मी की टोलियां भी हों जो हमारे पोस्ट के ऊपर खामी पहुंचाने की कोशिश कर रही हैं। तो ये सारी एक्टिविटीज तो वॉर में शामिल हैं। तो ये कहना मुश्किल है कि आगे क्या होगा, वो स्पेक्यूलेटिव जोन में आ जाता है और मैं स्पेक्यूलेट नहीं करना चाहता हूं। हर एक सिचुएशन अलग होती है और उससे एक तरीके से डील किया जाता है।
सर मैं एक सवाल इसका मैं जवाब देना चाहता हूं, एक मिनट। जो मिलिट्री होता है, our main job is to prevent war and maintain peace and stability. So it is not that our response is a graded response. That means अगर किसी ने किया तो उसको graded उसमें किया, जैसे terrorist action हुआ तो what we did is the terrorist action and we destroyed all the terrorist camps. उसके बाद आपने देखा कि उनने थोड़ा सा कोशिश किया तो हमारे एयरफोर्स एंड आर्मी ने क्या किया, तो मिलिट्री टारगेट्स हैं उनके ऊपर थोड़ा। So our aim is to maintain peace and tell our adversary that you do this and the response will be bloody.
Okay, now as per the, please, we'll have 166 and 25 and after that no more please. So, Sir, this side. Ladies and gentlemen, please maintain, I request you to please be quiet.
Jal Ghai?
No.
This side, sir.
We have only two questions left, 166. Yeah, please ask.
So I'm Rahul Singh from Hindustan Times, sir. So you were totally on top of the game in the kind of losses you've inflicted on the enemy. I mean, we saw the slides and everything. So it kind of comes across that you were batting it 99 and you decided to declare your innings. What are your thoughts on that, sir? And do you think, are you weighing the option of the Pakistan army using this time, buying this time of the so-called ceasefire or the understanding? And you talked about how they could not be trusted. So buying time to kind of build up their war reserves, getting stuff from their friends like Turkey or China, are we considering that possibility, sir?
Look, see, the call came from the Pakistani side to speak about cessation of hostilities. What pauses mean during such conflicts is known to everybody. You know, I don't want to go into the pros and cons of how preparation for war is made. You know, that is a process in itself. But I think my senior colleague here, the DG Air Operations, spoke, or he alluded at least, you know, to what this operation was precisely and specifically meant for. And I think that's something that we achieved, you know, right at the outset. Had we had the option not to go further, we probably wouldn't have. But we've been compelled to be in this situation. And as you've seen, the armed forces of India, and you know, you've got the three Director Generals sitting here, we are always prepared to face any eventuality. And like I said, that's for the sovereignty, the territorial integrity, and the safety of our citizens. So whatever has to be done will be done. You know, I'm not so concerned about what Pakistan will do in this time. I'm only concerned about what we will do. We have a roadmap and a plan, and we will follow it diligently, and we will follow it to the T. You know, that's the contention that I want to make here today.
Ma'am, please. Okay, the last question, and ma'am, 25. She's been asking since the first one.
Sir, I'm Nandita. Sir.
She's not asking a question.
Sir, I'm Nandita Dagar, DAGAR from DD News and DD India. Sir, I wanted to ask you that my question is to General Ghai. Sir, you spoke to your counterpart yesterday and the Pakistani counterpart. Sir, what is the Indian Army's assessment that despite that agreement, that talk that you had, despite that agreement coming into effect at 1700 hours yesterday, why did they violate it? And number two, yesterday at the Joint Defense Ministry and Foreign Ministry briefing, Wing Commander Vyomika Singh and Colonel Sophia Qureshi had told us that we have cited the Pakistani troops amassing at the borders and at the LOC. Sir, has that situation changed? Have they withdrawn? And sir, if in case, despite now there is a lull, of course, but if tonight again, the enemy again carries out shelling and aerial intrusions through drones, what is going to be our response, sir? Thank you.
So, without outlining the specifics of that response, I've already made it clear that there will be a response, and it will be fierce and it will be punitive. Why the Pakistan Army chose the option of violating the understanding that was arrived at earlier yesterday, I think that's a question that we best answered by the Pakistan DGMO. I wouldn't be able to, give you that. But, in situations such as these, and if you go back into any conflict, sometimes these understandings take time, to fructify and manifest on ground. But without, getting into the reasons, it is our mandate to be prepared at all times, and that we were. It's not as if because there was an understanding we weren't prepared. I must tell you that the armed forces were on a very, very high alert, and they continue to be in that state even as we speak.
Oh, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, please, ma'am, please, Okay, thank you so much for coming today. Those who have missed asking a question, those who have missed, see, I knew I'll grab this attention from you like this. Those who have missed the opportunity to ask a question can give me a written one. I will definitely get back to you with that. And also, they are they are invited.
All right, then that was the press conference, the big explosive military agenda setting press conference that was carried out with the DGMO right at the center, Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, and you had the DG of the Air Operations, Air Marshal Bharti to his right side, and you had Vice Admiral Pramod to his left side, the DG of the Naval Operations. Terrorism will have a cost for Pakistan. It will be inevitable and it will be unaffordable. Read the presentation right at the beginning of this press conference loud and clear in bold letters. Joining me here in the studio is my colleague Shweta Kothari, and with us on the broadcast are Air Marshal VPS Rana, we've got Brigadier Anil Gupta, and former ADGP of Punjab, you've got Gurinder Singh Dhillon. Always a pleasure to have all of you with us here on News 9. Now Shweta, first and foremost, the most salient point that came across from that press conference was the fact that Pakistani personnel, there have been losses that they've sustained as well, about 35 to 40. Our targeting was absolutely precise. Navy's representation came across in that press conference for the first time. They said some precision strike munitions were provided by the Navy. What is it that you picked up? And we've got our panelists with us here on the broadcast.
So, you know, quite a few clarifications coming in with regards to India's actions on Pakistan. So while it began really with the precise military action that India carried out on those terror camps, those terror sites on 6th and 7th of May, you know, the 9 sites that were targeted, but most importantly, 2 of those sites which were shown in pictures and the extent of damage that our strikes caused on them in Bhavalpur and in Muridke. I think those were very, very crucial, come to think of it, Kabir, because that's what the DGMO emphasized on, suggesting that these were precision strikes and there could have been casualties. He said very categorically, but we don't count body bags. I think that was an important point, and also giving us a number on how many terrorists could have likely died in that process. So it started with that, and thereafter he also talked about the 2 strikes that India made. So on 7th, it started. On 8th, India struck once again after Pakistan sent out a volley of drones into India, violated at least their missiles and their drones violated India's airspace. There was a counter strike that was carried on 8th. On 8th is when the air defense system of Lahore was targeted, and subsequently on 9th, after the hostilities continued, cross-border firing continued, in which many civilians have died, by the way. An exact number was not provided in that press conference, but you know, a precise action was thereafter taken on 9th, in which many critical air force bases of Pakistan were targeted, quite close to Islamabad, and you know, those are important. I think those were very important. Chaklala as well, Rafiki, Chaklala, and those are important air bases, and the damage to the extent of which I believe that repair work is still going on was also pointed out. So I think in my assessment, this was an overview of how Operation Sindoor, Kabir, has carried out so far, also reinstating the fact that it is a continued operation. Our forces are vigilant at the border, and if need be, there will be strikes, punitive strikes made again. And remember, to the end of it, and before I give it back to you, it's also important to point out the DGMO has clarified that he got a call from his Pakistani counterpart at about 3:30 yesterday, post which it was decided that there will be cessation of hostilities on the border, but that ceasefire was violated within a couple of hours itself. So the DGMO calling it, the Indian DGMO calling it extremely unfortunate. There has been a second round of conversation between 2 DGMOs once again, and in that second round, India has made it very, very clear that if you violate this ceasefire, it will be nullified and will attack again.
Absolutely. Air Marshal VPS Rana, let's quickly get the snowball rolling here. What did you make of this press conference? Proof of Operation Sindoor for everybody else to see, you know, quite calibrated. Many thanks to Air Marshal A.K. Bharti, who, you know, with that laser pinpoint precision, told us what our missiles did in that pinpoint precision as well. But every time the DGMO sort of concluded their answer, they said, tonight is going to be the actual test. we're going to keep a lookout for what's going to happen tonight for any kind of intrusion or loitering munition incursions into the Indian airspace. It is going to be responded in a very fiery manner, and it's going to be punitive as well. Your assessment of what this hour-long press conference entailed?
Thank you, Kabir and Sweta, for having me here. I think this was like our attack. This briefing was as precise as it could be. They have answered every question that needed to be answered, and they have not answered a question that need not have been answered at this stage. So one thing that has come out very clearly, and I must tell you that this warfare will stand in history as one of the most successful war or operations for that matter, if you're not calling it a war yet. But everything that could have been done through air operations or ground operations and through the coordinated effort has been done in this operation. So this is absolutely a classical air operations and air campaign that has been done as it unfolded in that briefing. From the time of choosing the target, gathering the intelligence, doing the reconnaissance, getting a very, very specific details of the target, planning the coordinated and simultaneous attack by both Army and Air Force, and then going into the details of specific targets that what needs to be taken down. And obviously that what weapon to be used, because that's how based on that they would have target to weapon matching would have been done, and those precise attacks have been taken. Then next day, as would happen in a classical air warfare, there was a suppression of air defenses, enemy air defenses, and again they were very calculated. They did not go whole hog. We were still trying to send a message across that, listen, we are ready for a typical classical war, and it was only the signaling to that extent. We did take out their AD radars, we took out their command control centers, and also their AD weapons on other thing. And so this at this stage it was still a messaging. But come the evening,
I'll come back to you, sir. Right. And Marshal, I'll come back to you, sir, on some of those sites that Indian Air Force targeted and the importance of those sites, especially Chaklala, Rafiki, and what would those bases mean for Pakistan if they are damaged completely, which is our assessment right now. Let me also quickly get in ADGP Dillon into this conversation. ADGP, there is for the very first time, sir, Mr. Dillon, coming on record of how many casualties that have occurred on both sides. Now, we do know that Pakistani side must have suffered to the tune of about 35 to 40 casualties. This is their defense casualties that India has assessed right now, whereas 5 army personnel on India's side have also died in the line of duty, sir. When it comes to the casualties on both sides, especially the defense casualties, would it be right to point out that India has been able to minimize and keep its casualties to a bare minimum, which in itself gives India an upper hand when it comes to the operation that has transpired over the course of last 3 days? Mr. Dillon?
I think you'll have to unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you for reminding. Good evening, and thank you for having me on News 9. Yes, first of all, I'll address that this is an excellent call to do the press briefing. It is motivating and reassuring. It is like a CBM call, confidence building measures, and most of the gaps have been addressed. It gives clear indication that initial objectives have been achieved, and main target to destroy 9 terrorist operating centers have been demolished. Justice has been served, and retaliatory attacks and intrusions will be dealt with robust AD, and great deterrence will be created. As far as your question is concerned, Shweta, I fully agree with you that we have been very successful in what we wanted to do, and are, as said by the officers in the press briefing, it was very calibrated and of course punitive. Now, what I want to add is that yes, we have now clear idea as that we lost 5 of our brave men from the defense forces. Hats off to them. And of course, they will be remembered and they shall be remembered forever for their brave sacrifices made for this country. And yes, but that's not the end of it. I just want to add one more thing into it is that yes, because of the very effective AD system, we have been able to limit our losses to a great extent. There has been very less civilian fatalities. There were some civilian injuries because of the aerial attack, but yes, we have faced deaths on the LOC or J&K. Very sorry to know that. Now, coming to one point which I would like to add is that General Saab said that in conflict zone, every gap is very well, the people are aware on both sides what they are for and they are ready for it. But I would like to add, I would just like to give my insecurity that yes, we have very credible Navy. We are qualitatively and quantitatively superior to Pakistan, but we know that they have China backing. We have to be very alert in Arabian Sea so that our assets are safe, and when required, we are able to retaliate in a very robust fashion, because once Karachi port is immobilized, they are gone. There it will be biggest handicap for Pakistan.
Let's talk about Karachi port. Mr. Dhillon, let's talk about Karachi port, because I think we also heard from the fact that there was a mobilization towards Karachi port, albeit there was a lot of fake news around India destroying Karachi port, but I think there is a lot of ambiguity now whether there was an attack, there wasn't an attack. But we do know so far is that there's been forward post mobilization towards the Karachi port. What we also know right now, and I think that's very important to point out, Brigadier Gupta, is that it looks like in all probability that India has downed at least one or more than one high-tech jets of Pakistan. There was no confirmation on number that came through, but there was some sort of reconnaissance agreement that yes, we've been able to successfully down more than one, if not one aircraft, a Pakistan aircraft. And on asked on whether this is a fourth generation, the clarification came maybe not a high tech, so left to brainstorming and ambiguity. But at the same time, sir, it is significant. In your assessment, what does it tell you about India's air force preparedness if we were able to down a high tech aircraft?
See, Shweta, I just want to,
after this press briefing, I think
Brigadier
we should
Gupta.
stop the
Brigadier
speculations.
Gupta? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I said after this press briefing, we should stop speculations. Questions were asked, they were answered. No, there's been a lot of fake news. And I think after this press conference, it should be very clear that what the forces have achieved and what was part of the fake news industry. So as far as your question is concerned, I think Air Marshal Bharti did not admit to any of these things, but like you are saying that there is a speculation, a possibility is there. Because in Pakistan media also, it has been talked of. So since it's been talked in Pakistan media also...
Gupta, if I could just interject here. I think Air Marshal Bharti said that definitely a fighter jet has been downed. Do not put words in my mouth whether it was a 4th gen or a 4.5 gen aircraft. It was a high-tech aircraft, let's just say that. And he also clarified that the wreckage could not be found out because no plane crashed on our side of the border. But he said definitely there was a fighter jet that went down, that we downed a Pak fighter jet.
Shweta, but I am very happy, and it is very correct thing to do, that we have not disclosed as to what were the how many planes have been downed or which caliber or which generation. That's a very good operational call.
Operational essence, and like the DGMO and the Director Generals of the Naval and the Air Force Operations, they said that combat is still underway. But coming back to Brigadier Gupta, please complete your thoughts, sir. But the Air Marshal did in fact say that a Pak fighter jet was downed.
Yeah, okay, let's agree it was downed. I won't want to discuss any more on this. But we should see the other positive aspects. Indian Air Force has proved that it's the most professional Air Force in this subcontinent and maybe around the areas around. It has sent very strong signals to other adversaries also. The way the jointness has been shown between the Army, Navy and the Air Force and the plus point of this operation. Also, information gathering and how the information was being shared and how technology has been absorbed by all the three services is another high point or the plus point of this operation. The Indian Air Force carried out precision attacks. Repeatedly, it was said that we have this wide grey provocation on the LOC. Neither the Indian Army nor the Indian Air Force attacked any civilian target in Pakistan. That's a very, very big plus point and showed the professionalism of the Indian Armed Forces and the discipline with which the Indian Armed Forces, the ethos with which Indian Armed Forces are trained. Also of importance is the selection of targets. All targets were chosen with the purpose of degrading enemy's war fighting potential. Because we have been saying that we don't want escalation. But if you retaliate, you go up the escalation ladder, we will respond very fiercely and in punitive manner. And that's why the aim was to degrade his war fighting potential as early as possible so that he is forced to surrender, and which he did on the fourth day. So therefore, my compliments both Indian Air Force, Indian Army and Indian Navy and our leadership, which set a very, very specific objective and aim for the armed forces to achieve, which they did in just 4 days.
Right. Major General G.G. Dwivedi, let's talk about some of the hurt that Pakistan has to carry now, which is by the way of their military installations which have been destroyed by Indian armed forces, mainly in Sargodha, Rafiki, Chaklala, Murid, Sukkar. How significant are these losses for Pakistan?
Well, Sweta, first and foremost, it's very important to understand what was our political and military intent, and that was to deter the Pakistan army and also destroy their assets, particularly the assets which are with the militants or the terrorists and the support system that or ecosystem that is existing inside Pakistan. So to that extent, I think in this short time of 4 days, this has been well achieved because there's no doubt the results are evident because in the warfare there are two major dimensions. One is the defense, one is the offense. As far as defense is concerned, our defense was very robust and Pakistan efforts to target our installation actually met with no result. All they could do was to target our civilian areas with the drones and which was also very effectively foiled. Now coming to the offensive, I think we hit the gut of the Pakistan bases, their assets, and the 11 airfield have been hit. And after the debriefing by the DGMOs and the people who are handling the operations, I think there should be no doubt that Pakistan has been hit hard and hit where it is very sensitive. So the issue is that now there should be no debate as to who has the edge. We definitely had the edge, but my 2 points are very important. One is that Pakistan has always made use of our benevolence. I fought 71 war. And with similar agreement, they dumped it. In fact, no sooner it was signed, they violated it. Pakistan has a design. Whenever it is cornered, it always tries to wriggle out and try to get the mediation. It knocks the doors of his allies and masters, and that's exactly they did it today. I think that we should have punished it more because their proxy war doctrine, I don't think, is going to change because this is the bedrock of the fighting. They can't fight us straight. Directly, and this was shown in 4 days. So my apprehension is that they may get back to the proxy war again, and having done number of tenures on the LOC, they are very selective and
Major
they
General,
want to push the terrorists.
But Major General G.G. Dwivedi, then we strike again, sir. The point, there's no point of contention.
Yeah. Yes, I'll come to that.
Right. I mean, there is no end. There is no end to a war of this nature, sir. There are at least 40 such terror camps operating in Pakistan. We've targeted 9 of them. We'll target again. Point is, the messaging is very clear, Kabir. If you agree with me, I'm not sure that India. Yes, please. Yes, Brigadier.
Shweta, I think there's no end to hitting harder and harder. Where would have taken us? India from day one has been saying that we don't want escalation. It's a non-escalated response.
Right.
We are not interested in war. But still the choice with Pakistan. Pakistan goes for
You're absolutely
war,
right, Brigadier.
we are
And I
not
think it's interesting
pulling
that
back.
that mediation aspect was brought in
We are not
because
pulling back. We are going to respond. We are going to respond with punitivity. That is what
you look at
DGMO
social media as well. All the memes that are doing the rounds have Shehbaz Sharif running up to Uncle Donald Trump and asking for some sort of help that's come in as well. But in terms of more punitive punishment, I think that's going to happen next week at the UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee meeting, where India will put forth the same proof that the DGMO of the Tri-Forces put out in front of us. But Air Marshal Rana, talking about the DGMO's hotline interaction, because he clearly pointed out that it was Pakistan that called and proposed for this ceasefire. But there was a little snippet of information where the DGMO also said that, right after Operation Sindoor, right after the original escalation, which was Pahalgam, and India's retaliation, corroborated, responsible, mature and calculated retaliation, India had called up and said that, where do we take this next? And Pakistan's response just 24 to 36 hours before they finally called and asked for that ceasefire was that no way, nothing doing, we're going to give it back. A response which is hostile is going to be inevitable. What do you think led to this sudden U-turn? Our naval forces, I heard Vice Admiral Pramod also saying that the naval's North Arabian Sea positions forced Pakistan to come up and propose this ceasefire.
Yeah, I think that was also one of the main reason. But let me tell you the main reason. What in my assessment to this was the attack that came to all their airfields. And let me tell you, we have not hit Pakistan so hard even during 1971 and also in 1965. We carried on attacks for good about 10-15 days, but the kind of destruction that has been caused by this time, just by all the thing, and that too simultaneously, and that too to all their important bases, and their important bases are which were housing certain nuclear facilities, command control centers, or the aircraft capable of carrying those nuclear missiles. So all those attacks, like for example, I'll just talk about two. Sargodha is one of their key hub. And it's the hub of their entire air defense network. It's a headquarter of their air defense setup as well. It is housing the Combat Commanders School, one of the most prestigious school where your top-notch pilots are actually trained, and along with the air defense weapon controllers. So this is this hitting there, and when if you have studied these satellite pictures that were released, there were aircraft standing on that tarmac, and this was hit next to the runway, and we have deliberately not gone too much of a weight of attack on these airfields, because we were still trying to put some reasoning in Pakistan mind. But this time even that reasoning was really hard. We hit them in all these airfields, which indicated to them that, which were just next door in Rawalpindi, in Islamabad, in Lahore. All these attacks were done, and these all were done, as has been brought out in the briefing, has been done from our side of the border. We have done it through the cruise missiles, and also through our smart munitions, and also through our loitering munitions.
We were hoping for some more information in terms of what kind of ammunitions were used, because let's not hide behind the bush here. People have been talking about the BrahMos supersonic missile for the entire day now, with that booster and cone piece that matches with the BrahMos specs that's been found in Bikaner as well. But it would be great if we had some sort of information on that particular front as well. But
at the same time, Kabir, DGMO making it very, very clear that they don't want to share any more operational details, because that could give an edge to the
combat is still underway.
No, the combat is still underway and operation is still on.
I would just like to say that it suffices for our viewers and for everybody that we have the capability to launch cruise missiles from land, air and
absolutely.
sea.
Absolutely.
That goes without saying.
That's a well given, Air Marshal. I think not just that, the next gen of BrahMos, the new facility that's been inaugurated by the Raksha Mantri today in Lucknow, is also, a big red letter day for our, Atmanirbharta and defense made back at home in India. On that particular note, I think, Shweta, you were talking about the DGMO.
The DGMO level meeting, very, very crucial to point out, gentlemen. At this point, I think some clarification also coming in. The conversations that were started between India and Pakistan, it does appear now, the picture is clear that there was a DGMO level conversation initiated by Pakistan on a hotline to the Indian DGMO, where there was an agreement on cessation of any further fireworks across the border. Let's listen into what the Indian DGMO said before I come to you.
In the morning, even as we were getting into a huddle to wargame the events of the previous night, a routine exercise, I received a message on hotline from my counterpart in Pakistan seeking my willingness to communicate. Since our initial aim was to strike at terror camps, and all our actions in the subsequent days were in response to the intrusions and violations by the Pakistan Air Force and its army, it was decided that I would indeed speak with my counterpart. You are already aware, I've seen it being covered on national television, that my communication with the Pak DGMO was conducted at 15:35 hours yesterday and resulted in cessation of cross-border firing and air intrusions by either side with effect from 1700 hours 10th of May, after he proposed that we cease hostilities. We also decided to further speak on the 12th of May, that's tomorrow, at 1200 hours, to discuss the modalities that would enable the longevity of this understanding. However, disappointingly, and must I add, expectedly, it took only a couple of hours for the Pakistan Army to violate these arrangements by cross-border and across the line of control firing, followed by drone intrusions across the expanse of the Western Front through last night and in the early hours of the morning today. These violations were responded to robustly and dealt with as they must be. We have earlier today sent another hotline message to my counterpart highlighting these violations of the understanding between the DGMOs on the 10th of May and our firm and clear intent to respond to these fiercely and punitively, if repeated tonight, subsequently or later. In this regard, I must inform all of you that the Chief of Army Staff has earlier today conducted a security review and has granted full authority to our Army commanders for counter actions in the kinetic domain in case of any violation by Pakistan. In the end, I pay my solemn homage to my 5 fallen colleagues and brothers from the armed forces and civilians who have tragically lost their lives in Operation Sindoor.
Lieutenant General Ghai on the communication that India and Pakistan have had and the fact that within a couple of hours, Kabir, Pakistan resorted to violation of ceasefire. Major General Gigi Dwivedi, at this point in time, what options does India really have if there are to be further violations? We are going to, try and get more information on what the situation on ground in Kashmir is right now. It's been at least, in my understanding, about 22 hours since we have reported any further ceasefire violations. You were talking about how there seemed to be an agreement suddenly, a ceasefire, but on the behest of Pakistan, something that India agreed to, but violations on violations reported since then.
Well, Sweta, as far as the agreements and honoring the agreements, Pakistan's record is dismal, pathetic, and very untrustworthy. I am not talking academically, I have fought them, and I have certain experience on the ground that Pakistanis cannot be trusted. And they showed it within few hours, they had violated it. Well, you're asking me what should be India's option. I think India's option only one, that we should hit them hard. This question of restraint, calibrated, measured, I think they don't understand the language. Have they used this language even once on their side? No. The point is that Pakistan army needs to be hit because they're really clear. Only architect behind this. These terrorists are only expendable, commodity. They don't actually mean anything. And let me tell you, it is GHQ Rawalpindi which runs the country. So therefore, it is the jihadi Asim Munir, the person, and the jihadi army that he has trained. So when you ask me what is India's option one straight-cut option. Hit them hard. Let them feel the pinch. And let me also tell you, Pakistan army has had a free pass.
Right-thinking Indians, all the right-thinking Indians who are hearing you today would want to know, where does it end? There has to be an end to constant cross-border violence, and at the same time, calling for a larger war. Where does it end? Where does this war really end, if not on a ceasefire?
I wanted to, reply this, but I didn't get the time, Shweta. As the nation, we are not fighting this one instance or other instance. What is our political-military aim? That is to deter Pakistan. So until it is deterred, you carry on. This switch on and switch off doesn't work. Let me tell you that you switch off and you switch on. It has not worked for last 35 years. So therefore, we need to change our strategy. And I would say, as a military person with a lot of experience, that Pakistan doesn't understand the language. Yes, because it's a rogue state and it has a very bleak record. So please understand that what has not worked so far will not work in future. So this switch on and switch off, I think that format or that pattern must end. The whole point is we have a political military aim, and that is to deter Pakistan so that it stops the cross-border proxy war. It's not terrorism, one instance or other instance. Last 35 years, and can you imagine what price we have paid? 5,000 security personnel and 48,000 civilians. And out of these 35 years, I have operated 9 years in the valley. So therefore, I don't need to actually back up my statement. My point is, as a nation, we got to sort it out. I am not to advocate that dismember Pakistan. No, I don't believe in that. But all I am saying is that Pakistan army must feel the hurt. Well, it depends upon our policymakers when they feel that they have punished them enough. That is their
able to hurt them. I mean, this entire press conference, they clearly pinpointed how deep inside we went and, quite literally obliterated their terror landscape. Do you think we've been able to inflict the hurt and the pain that you're talking about here?
Yes, we are looking at two timelines. One is immediate timelines. Yes, no doubt about it. We have hit them very hard. In fact, Sargodha base comes to my mind in 1965. We have hit the same base. It's a very important base, and hitting 11 targets right into the depth about 150 to 200 kilometers is, I think, the very firm response. But we don't fight on the 4-day or 6-day basis. The aim is, in the long term, will it have effect? Well, it's upon the policymakers. If they feel that they have given enough medicine, well, so be it. But my hindsight says that Pakistan actually has always buys time. They wiggle out and they're back to the same game. So I think our policy makers also know the history well. They have always done this way. 65, 71, Kargil, name any number of times. The issue is let our planners, policy makers kind of calibrate as to how much dose is required.
You're absolutely right. There's no need to jump the gun over here. It's still just the 5th day ever since Operation Sindoor was in fact launched. Not even the 5th day complete at this point in time. But we do need to get the snowball rolling here. We also have with us, geopolitical expert, former ADGP of Punjab, Mr. Dhillon, with us on the broadcast. Mr. Dhillon, is this the new normal? Because of course, we did want to talk about how deep inside Pakistan we were able to carry out these strikes. The other aspect that one has to talk about is that the champion of this bout is our own aerial defense systems, and not even the S-400s and the L-70s that the layman out there needs a better understanding of. It's our legacy system, just like Air Marshal Bharti was talking about, the Garud, the Pechoras, these are our legacy systems that have really come in handy. But is this the new normal? Because the infantry wasn't actually deployed or used. These are just aerial incursions. This was pretty much 90% aerial warfare. And we've seen it time and again with what's happening in West Asia. We've seen it happen in Ukraine, Russia for the latter half of that incursion. That these loitering munitions, the drone warfare that is really taken up. Swarm drones is the new vocabulary and lexicon, usage that people are now using. So is this the new normal on our Western front? Is this going to stay? What kind of changes are you looking at as well?
Yes, Kabir, thank you for asking. No doubt about that what was in 71 is not there. As we have seen in Ukraine, as we have seen in these 4 days, this is the new normal. Slowly, I had written in one of my articles in which I mentioned DUAS, Sudarshan Chakra and Chakravyuh. DUAS means defense of air and space and 360-degree approach. This is the normal. We need at least at a time 1 million drones to fight it back because we have a situation of true front war. But I also want to add 2 points, taking further Air Marshal Rana's discussion and what we gathered in press conference. One is objective, deterrence, and readiness. I think today's press conference clarifies everything, that objectives have been reached. Secondly, coming again to Arabian Sea, as we were briefed in the press conference that posturing and qualitative and quantitative visible superiority was a great deterrence. So number 2, Shweta was asking telling that out of 40 targets, only 9 were targeted. Very clearly, it is mentioned in today's press briefing that out of the 49 was selected, but because after the Pahalgam and expected retaliation, many of these were vacated, and based on intelligence inputs, these 9 targets were selected, and those 9 have been destroyed. About 100 terrorists have been killed, including some of them were named. It means till now, we have achieved the objective which was defined, as well as we were able to cause damages to them for their retaliation or robust retaliation. I think this is very satisfactory outcome till now. And at the same time, it is clearly indicated that today's COS briefing and instructions and the readiness at the air, ground, and Navy, that gives a very assuring feeling.
That's actually a very great point that you've raised over here, Mr. Dhillon. Let me take that question to Brigadier Gupta. Brigadier Gupta, today the Chief of Army Staff, he reviewed the security on the Western Front. He's given full authority to the Western commanders, the corps commanders over there, to carry out any kind of kinetic response in the same domain, if at all there is any escalation coming from the other side. How big of a development is this? Because the last time the Chief of Army Staff, General Dwivedi, visited Pahalgam to take stock of the situation after the attack and the carnage, he had given the same instruction to the forward establishments and the forward equipments in Jammu and Kashmir as well. So how big of a development is this? A free hand to the Western Command?
Kabir, first let me talk of the new normal which you mentioned, and one of the panelists, the honored panelists, spoke about it. For me, this cannot be new normal. We cannot define any normals now, because Pakistan has come to know its weaknesses. It has come to know what it's going to face. So therefore, Pakistan will take measures to overcome this and strengthen its defenses as well as the anti-drone capabilities. So therefore, this cannot be treated as a new normal. But we have to surprise them with something different. The high technology weapons are evolving. There are newer and newer types of weapons coming in. Ramjet and so many laser weapons, laser guided weapons. There's so many, high-tech weapon systems are going to dominate the future battlefield. So therefore, we must concentrate on developing and employing and integrating those weapon systems with our forces, so that next time we have to deal with Pakistan, we surprise him and he is taken by surprise once again, and he faces the punishment which he deserves. Now, coming on to your point, I think it's more of a messaging. Already the orders exist. The corps commanders and the army commanders do have the liberty to respond on the LOC. So, but it's a messaging, very strong messaging to the opponent that dare you do anything, you will get an immediate punitive response. That is what today's, I would say, the authorization which has been given down to the army commanders means. From my side, it's more of a messaging and signaling to the adversary that you cannot dare to violate the ceasefire at will, and if you do it, you'll be punished very, very heavily.
Of a message that perhaps all the corps commanders got from the Chief of Army Staff General Upendra Dwivedi. Air Marshal VPS Rana, I think in the run-up to the conversations that happened today and the cessation of hostilities on the border, there was also some talks of nuclear weapons being deployed by Pakistan, perhaps the possibility that there was a conversation to that regard, sir. I have to ask you right now, as far as India and Pakistan's nuclear ability is concerned, the media reports that are out there in the public domain suggest that Pakistan has about 170 nuke heads. India has perhaps a couple of them more, to the tune of about 180, which includes our Agnis and Prithvis. In your assessment, sir, when it comes to nuclear power, which of these two countries actually stand out, not just in number, but in terms of the capabilities to launch these nukes?
See, this is, first of all, we must call out a nuclear bogey of Pakistan. Pakistan has got exposed every time they've been trying to blackmail us on the nuclear threats. But as far as the capabilities are concerned, you don't need too many piles. So nuclear capability is not something that you can really measure in terms of the number of warheads you have. I mean, you drop 2-3 warheads and that's good enough. So the point is whether you will go nuclear. Can you go nuclear is a bigger question than what is the stockpile that you have. This was when in the Cold War era, this was the point. The Russia and the USA, they realized that it was really worthless to have this capability being measured in terms of number of warheads you have. I mean, your one attack on Nagasaki did, and Hiroshima and Nagasaki did what it did. And we still are repenting that, even the people who launched that missile are also repenting that wish it had not happened.
So, Marshal, if it's not about nuke heads, what stands out then, when it comes to capabilities?
In terms of capability, launch capability, India is far ahead. We have that capability to launch it from sea, from undersea, from air, and from ground. In terms of Pakistan, also they have the capability to launch it from land and from the aircraft. So the capability-wise, you have a platform to launch and you have a weapon to launch. So that's good enough. Thereafter, it is all destruction. So whether it will ever go to that level where you will employ nuclear weapons, I don't think so. But that threat would always remain. We have made our position very clear that we will not be the first user of nuclear.
No first use policy. Absolutely, but Pakistan doesn't have one in place. Let me get in General G.G. Dwivedi into this conversation. General, there is no first use policy as far as Pakistan is concerned. There is ambiguity on their nuclear use policy, which is the reason why there's a lot of political posturing, nuclear posturing, every time the relationship between India and Pakistan deteriorates, and every time they foresee India retaliating to their state sponsoring of terrorism. And this time around as well, playing by the book, they went straight up to the US president, tried asking for mediation, and that's exactly what transpired. But, in a way, the Western media is reading it, General Dwivedi, is that it's not about Pakistan being a state-sponsored a country that sponsored terrorism. It's about India hyphenated by Pakistan. So it becomes a regional conflict, as opposed to what India is trying to deliver, a message that this fight is against terrorism. It's not about regional conflict. It's not about Kashmir. It is about terrorism.
Absolutely, Sweta. It's very unfortunate that we are being hyphenated with Pakistan, a rogue state, which doesn't have any standing, a state which is bankrupt, a state which is always lends itself to use, misused and abused well, I think it's a very unfortunate, and we should go hammer and tongue in information warfare to disassociate itself with Pakistan. The second point is that Pakistan has a history. Whenever they get into logjam, they run around. They knock the doors of their allies, their masters, and they have done that. And this is again the same repetition. The third point is Pakistan nuclear bogey. Well, please understand that nuclear weapons are never used. It is a deterrence. And Pakistan, there's no ambiguity on their doctrine. They say statedly that we will use it first time. So I don't think there's any ambiguity. But we have these. We are not following the no first use. We always will respond, but Pakistan knows that our response will be very hard hitting. They may be actually wiped out from the geographic globe, from this globe per se. Now, last point which I want to make is, see, there's enough space to fight it out before you reach a nuclear threshold, and that is not our aim as such. Once again, I am reiterating, what is our aim? Our aim is not terrorism itself. Our aim is to fight the terrorist state. Pakistan is a terrorist state, and that is what it is. The terrorism is emanating from there. They are the epicenter of terrorism. That is part of their doctrine. They practice it. Now we are fighting not only terrorism but the state which is sponsoring terrorism, and that's what our fight should be. And my last point is, look, it is a nation fight. It's not only three security forces. It's a nation. We have to use all levels of power, means economical, political, cultural, and of course the armed forces. Until we bring total pressure on Pakistan, I'm sorry to say that they are not going to mend the ways. Just treat this as a phase one and be prepared for phase two, phase three if need be. But our end aim is what? To mend this state its ways, to mend Pakistan army, to stop sponsoring terrorism. That is what our aim is. We are not.
Forgive my ignorance, sir. I don't have the number of years as you do. But what I do know from my limited reading of history, this has been a constant affair. Even after 1971, Pakistan has continued to sponsor terrorism. So even when they agreed, even when they stated out there in public that they will not, they have continued supporting terrorism. So there is no end game, sir. I feel, unfortunately, we are living with a neighbor that continue to be an aggressor.
There is no conclusion to these operations as well. I mean, Operation Meghdoot, Operation Parakram, Operation Sindoor, which is still underway and still
Operation
ongoing.
Meghdoot is still on?
It is still on. I mean, if that proxy warfare is not going to come to an end, neither will these operations which started, but there seems to be no end time frame to these operations. They continue to go on. That was the new normal that I was trying to assess and get at. And I think Brigadier Gupta, help us understand here. If the cessation of these hostilities, it's not followed to the T, if something in terms of Pakistani misadventure is carried out again tonight, what do you think the next 24 hours are going to look like? Because Prime Minister Modi, our leadership, the Tri-Forces Chief, the Raksha Mantri, NSA Doval, they all sat down on that huge table and they decided any act of terror is going to be construed as an act of war. What's going to happen next now that we're looking at this ceasefire? Normalcy that has been prevailing over the last 10-11 hours or so, but what if the misadventures again begin tonight?
That's anybody's guess. But suffice to say, as has been emphasized by the DGMO and the naval representative also, and the Air Force has already issued a press statement, Operation Sindoor has not been called off. Operation Sindoor is on. Our forces remain on the high state of alert. There's been only an agreement on cessation of fire. So if Pakistan dares to repeat what it did last night, this time they will get something which they did not expect. The punishment is going to be very, very severe and heavy. And then thereafter, the escalation will not go any end, because the time of proportionate response is now over. Now onwards, as has been told to the LC commanders also, एक गोले के बजाय गोला मारिए. That means disproportionate response is going to be there. When it's disproportionate response, that means we will use all types of means. And in any case, like General Dwivedi said, it's a whole government approach. The comprehensive national power will be used all the government department, the diplomacy, economy, or pressure on the other side from the friends, everything be utilized to bring Pakistan back to knees. And the IWT is our main weapon. IWT is still be held in abeyance. Today also we released water from Salal. We are continuing to release water. We are continuing to stop water. This is created an uncertainty.
Lines are going to be redrawn, Brigadier. Is it going to be the treaty that's going to be modified? Is that going to be the new lines that people are talking about? It's going to be actually on paper with the Indus Water Treaty?
That we'll see. The government has already announced that tomorrow only the meetings will be between the DGMOs. And there's no other level of meeting. That means presently we are only looking for cessation of hostilities, and if at all Pakistan is willing to sign an agreement.
Which is very important, Brigadier. What you're pointing out essentially is that there's no administrative level meeting. We're only meeting at a militarily level.
Yes. Bilkul, totally. It's been clarified to the government that meetings tomorrow will be only at the DGMO level. So therefore, the tweet of External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, immediately after Rubio's tweet is very important. There is very clearly said that we have only agreed for cessation of fire. We will not get into any negotiations till such time Pakistan does away with terrorism. So
do you think the IWT is the biggest bargaining chip on the negotiation table right now?
Definitely. That is not only a bargaining chip, it is the weapon in our hand. We must weaponize IWT, and we are doing it now. Today only Salal waters have been released. Tomorrow we'll stop them. See what is happening. It's uncertain. This is the season of sowing cotton in Pakistan, and it's the main crop. And if there's uncertainty on availability of water in their canals, this crop will be damaged. Once the cotton crop is damaged, its textile industry will be damaged. Imagine the Pakistan economy as it is crippling, and you damage its main source of income, that is the textile industry. What effect is going to have on its morale and its finances? So therefore,
a dwindling economy, right? A dwindling economy and agrarian economy, 25 to 24% of the economy is run through agriculture. This is the Kharif crop sowing season, and right ahead of it, if the treaty is kept in abeyance, if there is overflowing of water, underflowing of water, essentially means that the farmers are going to take a big hit. I have to get ADGP Dhillon into this conversation. ADGP, and before we let all of you go, I think one of the big talking points that also came into conversation through the day today was the raking up of Kashmir issue, which was again done by the US President Donald Trump. He brought up Kashmir. He said that is the point of contention between India and Pakistan.
For thousands of years.
Thousands of years, he pointed out, in all his wisdom, knowing India and Pakistan were only divided in 1947, but we'll give it to him for his error of judgment, error of reading. But, Mr. Dhillon, point being...
Poor knowledge of history.
Poor
knowledge of history.
Absolutely. Point being, this is not about mediating. India will never mediate on Kashmir.
Yes, very well. So there are, Shweta, there are 3-4 points which you have mentioned, and all of those points are very important. Number one is that Mr. Trump talked about 1,000 years. The problem is that he doesn't have very good knowledge about geopolitics. He was a businessman. He is neither a full-fledged politician, so we leave it there. And when we have friends and world leaders, we have to understand the assets and liabilities. So let's leave it there. Second point is the mediation in Kashmir. I don't think we will ever like our doctrine or anything what we call, we need no mediation. We would not accept any mediation on the Kashmir issue. That is POK. The POK belongs to India, and it is taking time to bring it back. Number 3 point which is covered is the terrorism. The terrorism in Kashmir started when Russia left Afghanistan. The focus of Pakistan shifted from Afghanistan to Kashmir. When in 79, Russia entered Afghanistan, very well message was conveyed to India that please, their focus has shifted because of the external pressure. Pakistan Army's focus is shifted to Afghanistan border. You please take over POK. But whatever the geopolitical compulsions or internal compulsion, we did not go for it. But no doubt about that 88, 89 onwards, the focus of terrorism, sponsored terrorism, shifted towards Kashmir. And since then, we have been suffering, and Pahalgam is the final point. But I want to add that it is the leadership, present leadership, political leadership, and military leadership, they have taken a call. And this Operation Sindoor is one of the best benchmarks created, and it will go as a milestone in military history of the world. Now, number 3 point, as far as another exposure in this Sindoor operation is that it is exposed that Pakistan Army leadership and terrorist organization leadership, they are merged and they are one. So therefore, India needs to treat Azhar Masood, Hafiz Sood and Asif Munir as terrorist heads and not as army chief of that country.
That's a very important point, Mr. Dhillon, and I'd like General Dwivedi to come in on that. A lot of questions, General Dwivedi, on where's the proof? Where's the proof that in Pahalgam, Pakistan was involved? While, we've heard from our sources that perhaps the communication devices, the training that Pahalgam terrorists got was from Pakistan. We are trying actively to locate them. They may have crossed the border already, for all we know. Point is, India has now changed its doctrine vis-a-vis providing proof. It will not be providing proof anymore. It will act first.
Because we've done it twice. And
we've done it multiple times, as a matter of fact. In 2001, Parliament attack. In 2000, later in 2016 in Uri. We've done it in 2008 in Mumbai terror attack. So dossiers on dossiers that have been provided to the Pakistani side, but no action taken thereafter. Now, this time around,
not just that, Shweta, they use the same information to cover their own, tracks. It helps them in a way, rather than helping the entire world in its fights against terrorism.
Absolutely. General Dwivedi, the point being, it does look like India has changed its war doctrine. It will not be providing proof anymore. It will act first. Albeit, at the same time, India is prepared to depose in front of UNSC, the 1267 committee that will be convened next week to give adequate proof. But before that, India will strike. That's the message that we're getting now.
Absolutely, Shweta. I think the era of providing proof is long gone, and we should bury it, because India does not require proof, because we have been victim of this Pakistan proxy war. And it's the time that we have to act, because we don't have to give proof, because Pakistan doesn't actually acknowledge any proof. In fact, Osama bin Laden was sitting there for almost a decade with a huge family, and yet they said that no, he wasn't there, and he was sitting just 3 kilometers away from Abbottabad. So absolutely right. I think India has now taken a very considered stand that we are not going to provide proof. What for? We'll act. And secondly, Shweta, the United Nations Security Council is defunct. They are just toothless people. And in current, the structure, China, of course, has a P5, and Pakistan is there as a temporary member. Now they have certain amount of, I would say, clout, and Chinese will always back up Pakistan being a client state. So therefore, we should not be worried too much about the UN Security Council. All I want to say is strong nations act. They do what they have to do. They are not worried about the global, polity or the global influence or the image. That is not required. We have a war to fight, and that is what we are fighting for. No one is interested. Let me tell you, who has listened to Trump? Netanyahu is not bothered about him. Putin is not bothered. Why should we be trying to placate him? No. I think India must do what it needs to do, and that answer is one line. We need to deter and defeat Pakistan proxy war. Pakistan as a state which sponsors terrorism must be exposed globally. We need to go hard on in information warfare, because Pakistan, let me tell you, they have never accepted defeat. In 71, I was part of that war, and we are on Dhaka on 16 December. Pakistan radio was telling, we are winning the war, and that one other side, they are surrendering. So this nation does not require any proof. They do not listen to any logic. They only understand one thing, that is kick kick them hard and they will behave. I was commanding my battalion in Siachen, and they have held on to ceasefire because they are being hit so badly. So wherever they get hit, they'll accept it, but where they have an easy pass, they will always come and play games. Pakistan is a monkey on our back, and it's a time to get the monkey off our back.
All right, but before I give it back to Kabir, I think it's, wars are also time that test your friends and your enemies, and in this case specifically, Kabir, I think we are now clear on who are the countries that continue to support Pakistan without really calling out the fact that it continues to harbor terrorists, and that includes Turkey, Azerbaijan and China. I think, and let me quickly take a question to Air Marshal Rana here. Air Marshal, I think, in a war-like situation when it's also a test of enemies, friends and foes, enemies and allies, it's clear some of these countries are countries that continue to support a state which is known to harbor, aid, assist terrorists. And I think a lot of memes doing the rounds and conversations we're having on a daily basis with our friends and family suggesting Azerbaijan becoming one of the top destinations that India wants to go to. Many Indians want to go to Baku. Are going to be rethinking about, perhaps we should continue supporting these countries or not?
Even Turkey as well, Shweta, being
Absolutely.
the place that connects the maximum amount of flights on this planet. It's that position that connects the world. That's that tagline as well. The entire world is there. And Turkey is a difficult pill to swallow because of the earthquakes and how quickly India responded and sent relief back to Turkey. That's another aspect to look at.
An ongoing relief mission to Turkey for
Shehbaz
that matter.
Sharif only yesterday called out his brothers, the emirs of Qatar as well. So all of those aspects certainly need to be looked at as well. Over to you, Air Marshal.
Yeah, I think our diplomats should be taking care of that. I'm sure all these have already been picked up. I'm sure, in any case, there was no surprise. We had seen the support coming from Turkey earlier. Azerbaijan, we don't really need to bother too much. But yes, certain measures need to be tightened. One point before I further put on that, I wanted to make on the IWT. We are still not in a state where we are trying to weaponize the water, so to say. We are not doing that. What we are trying to do is, we will say we are keeping our interest first. All these are very small things of not letting them know when are we releasing water and when are we stopping water, because that is as per our requirement. But that is not the weaponizing of water as yet. We had the similar situation with China on Brahmaputra when this Galwan happened. They stopped sharing that we do not even have any treaty with them. So they stopped sharing all these information, hydrological data about a release and holding of the water, and we are in the same situation in Indus water today. The point that we have to do is, I agree that this is a good bargaining chip that we have, and we have been trying to do that last 3, 4, 5 years to renegotiate the treaty. We went to World Bank. We have been requesting repeatedly with Pakistan, and Pakistan has been blocking our request. So now we are free from all that, and we do what we want to do, particularly in terms of
Marshal, stay with us, sir. We do have some breaking news coming in on the show. There are reports of ceasefire violation yet again. There is a report that Pakistani army and rangers across LOC and international border in several sectors of Jammu and Kashmir have violated the ceasefire. Forces are responding strongly. Yet again, sir, in less than 24 hours of that agreed ceasefire, violation of that ceasefire, it does look like, Kabir, reports of ceasefire violations being reported across the Kashmir Valley.
Yep, the locations aren't still clear, so we will have to tread a little bit carefully here. But if the DGMO's word is anything to go by, I think the response is going to be exactly as fierce and as punitive as possible, because the DGMO and the DG of the air operations and the naval operations made it quite clear that our response is going to be absolutely punitive and in the same kinetic domain and intensity.
Absolutely.
Can I come in?
They it appropriately, but let's watch. Let's wait and watch that what are the kind of violations are these, because if they are only fire, then it would probably get restricted there. But if they are again getting into the large scale, drone and UAVs inside, then I think it would need a appropriate response.
Absolutely, Air Marshal. You know, on that note, Air Marshal Rana, Brigadier Gupta, former ADGP Mr. Dhillon, and Major General G.G. Dwivedi. It has been a riveting conversation on that long press conference, that military agenda-setting, explosive, detailed-ridden, press conference. I think we're going to need a quick commercial breather here because some breaking developments are coming, our way. Right on the other side of this quick commercial breather here, we'll tell you exactly what are the locations and the places where we are getting information of some sort of border skirmishes and ceasefire violations at the hand of Pakistan. The Indian Armed Forces responding very strongly on these aspects as well. Take a listen to some of these excerpts from the media presser, and on the other side, breaking developments.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
बेबो का एक ही रूल, रोज खाओ अंडे विदाउट भूल। 'Cause eggs are cool, cool, cool. Yes, eggs are cool, cool, cool. Summer में एनर्जी हो जाती है कम, खाओ अंडे एनर्जेटिक रहो हरदम। Strength or power मिले हर रोज with proteins and minerals का daily dose. Eggs are cool, cool, cool. Yes, eggs are cool, cool, cool. Yes, eggs are cool, cool, cool. संडे हो या मंडे, रोज खाओ अंडे।
मुस्कुराए लड़खड़ाए जिंदगी, चाहे जो भी हो।
सर, पेशेंट के लिए कौन सा रूम प्रेफर करेंगे आप?
जिंदगी भर के प्यार का कोई रेट कार्ड नहीं होता। टाटा AIG हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस, विद यू लाइक फैमिली, विद यू ऑलवेज।
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind. Welcome to this special press conference on Operation Sindoor. We will begin with opening statements by the three senior officers to my right here, who have been directly overseeing operations during Operation Sindoor. We have Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, Director General Military Operations, who will cover the aspects related to land domain. Air Marshal A.K. Bharti, to his right, Director General Air Operations, will provide insights on the air domain. And to my right is Vice Admiral A.N. Pramod, Director General Naval Operations, who will cover aspects on maritime domain. Following their briefings, we will move on to the question answer session. I now request the DGMO to commence the opening brief.
Thank you, Sandeep. A very good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. You are all by now familiar with the brutality and the dastardly manner in which 26 innocent lives were prematurely terminated at Pahalgam on the 22nd of April. When you combine those horrific scenes and the pain of the families that the nation witnessed with numerous other recent terrorist strikes on our armed forces and defenseless civilians, we knew that the time had arrived to make yet another compelling statement of our resolve as a nation. Operation Sindoor was conceptualized with a clear military aim to punish the perpetrators and planners of terror and to destroy their terror infrastructure. What I do not state here, of course, is the often stated determination of India and its intolerance to terror. It set into motion a very diligent and microscopic scarring of the terror landscape across the borders and the identification of terror camps and training sites. The locations that emerged were numerous, but as we deliberated more, we realized that some of these terror hubs were now bereft of any presence